I like this story. Hands down, my favorite fundamentalist felon and creationist convict, Kent Hovind, has managed to get back into the interweb streams.
Now, did you say felon or villain?
Felon. I was going for an alliteration.
Ah, not a fellow villain, then.
No, not a fellow villain. No, not at all. Creationist evangelical Kent Hovind released a video stating that God purposely put contradictions in the Bible to weed out non-believers. The video, which was posted on YouTube, was responding to a question about a contradiction in the book of Acts. Hovind said that if he were God, he would write the Bible with things that would make people who didn't want to believe think that they had found reasons not to. Specifically, he said, I would put things in there that would appear without digging to be contradictions. Hovind finished by saying that he will choose to believe the Bible until it's proven wrong.
Oh dear. Oh dear. This would be like me creating a test for my students and saying, oh wait, no, we do that. We do put trick questions and tests.
Trick questions?
They gotta dig a little bit, though.
This is beyond circular reasoning. This is Mobius strip reasoning in my book. And the interesting thing is, if you watch this video, he just says that. So the guy asks him about a very specific contradiction of the book of Acts, and he simply says his little piece that he has to say about contradictions and never actually addresses the question.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting form of an answer. If I just run my gums long enough, I have somehow won.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think this might be similar to the idea that anything that's in the fossil record, anything that, when you look at a cross-section of mountain that has, resulted from upthrust of the earth, of movement of the tectonic plates, you have strata, you can see different geologic time periods within the rocks, and people like Kent Hovind, and Kent Hovind himself included, will say, oh, these were just things placed in the rock, all at the same time to fool you and test you.
Oh, Bill Hicks had a great bit about this where he says, he goes, I have just one question. If the Bible's true, why does it not mention dinosaurs? And he goes, I asked this to a Christian one time, and the guy's response was, God put those to test our faith, not our face.
Well, looking at your face right now, I can see that you passed that test, Jeremy.
Yeah. And he goes on to say, I don't know if I want to believe in a prankster God who is messing with me. Running around the world, burying dinosaur bones just to find out who believes in him. This is a really weird standard of faith that you probably wouldn't get Kent Hovind to have that standard of faith unless he's faced with this question, because his whole career is built on the opposite idea that everything actually does line up with the global flood. Yeah. And it can explain everything.
Well, there are so many examples that you can look at in the real world and in the Bible as contradictions. Like in the real world, if you think, there are galaxies that are millions of light years away, which we know the speed of light is a constant. And so if God created the universe 6,000 years ago, that means he created most of the light in the universe almost to Earth.
So God created light that was traveling at that specific speed just to trick you and all those physicists.
Yeah.
God's vision, apparently, according to Kent Hovind, is a heaven of the incredibly gullible. It's God's perfect world is Amway's perfect world as well.
Oh, dear. I think that believing in a prankster God or believing in a trickster God is something that's quite common to a lot of non-Christian cultures and faiths out there. I mean, we have the raven, we have coyote in our own North American, mythology, and we have Anansi the Spider-Man in different parts of Africa. So it's not completely out of the realm of possibility for cultures to develop prankster and trickster deities, just none so powerful as
typically as a polytheist.
More of a sideshow god than the man in charge.
And
the Marvel Cinematic Universe has one of those.
Oh man, is Captain America's shield just there to trick us? Is the Iron Man's are all of those things just there to make us believe a certain way? And
listen, if it hurts your brain to think about it, you're thinking too hard. Go back to churning butter or whatever it is that you do.
I believe that Captain America's shield and Tony Stark's suit is there to show us that Marvel knows how to make a movie and DC doesn't.
Oh, they keep trying, though.
They do.
So the prankster God is really the kind that you prefer, Jeremy, right?
I prefer to be left to my own devices.
I just love that without digging, there would appear to be contradictions without digging. I think my favorite contradiction in the Bible is the four-legged swarming creatures, the four-legged insects.
There are four-legged? This is one I have not heard.
Does that contradict another verse in the Bible or just reality as a whole?
Just reality.
Oh.
I also like that the bat is a bird.
Rabbits chew cud.
Yes, rabbits chew cud. That's an awesome one. Or how about the two varying and conflicting creation stories in Genesis itself?
Right out the gate.
One of my favorites for contradictions that you can throw out, particularly for like people who like to pretend that the Old Testament doesn't exist, is you could just say, okay, what was Jesus's last words? Because I believe there are 4 accounts of Jesus' death, 3 different last words, and 1 silence.
Oh, really? I know, Father, Father, why have you forsaken me?
Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do.
I'll be back.
That one. Tonight you shall sit at the right hand of my Father, I think is one of them.
You guys are all in territory unfamiliar to me. I'm the one that grew up pluralistic Jewish, so...
We'll bring it back into your sphere now, since we're talking about Kent Hovind on YouTube. We also have another story. A YouTuber rabbi claims that only 1 million Jews perished in the Holocaust.
This is something that you typically hear from Holocaust deniers, from folks that generally have an anti-Semitic bent, that say things like, well, the Holocaust wasn't that big a deal. In fact, it wasn't a Holocaust at all. It was merely a war. It was merely a political conflict, and the numbers of people that perished are completely overinflated. So to see that a rabbi is claiming that only 1 million, where the accepted figure is generally around 6 million Jews perished in the Holocaust, is, at first glance, a little bit disconcerting.
And upon a further investigation, still disconcerting, just for different reasons, I believe, than you would. So what's the motivation here? This guy is ultra-Orthodox. Can you kind of break that down for us briefly, Becky, what that means?
So ultra-Orthodox are Jewish folks that believe very, very sincerely in the Bible. They believe in a Messiah that will come, in a literal Messiah, and they believe that in order to be a good and authentic Jew, you must abide by as many of the commandments as possible. There's a tremendous rigidity in terms of modesty, in terms of family structure, in terms of purpose, and in terms of study. I mean, close exegesis of biblical text and commentary is a way of life. So you have this particular Rabbi Yosef Mizrahi, who has embraced one aspect of modern society, and that is having a YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah? Is that kind of against? Well, he probably doesn't broadcast on Saturdays?
I would imagine not, since that would be the Sabbath. So that's an example of one of the rigid rules that one must obey. But to have him basically say that only 1 million Jews perished is predicated upon his close reading of what it means to be a Jew per religious law. So what he's arguing here is that there was a high assimilation rate amongst Jews in Europe before World War II, and so he postulates that 80% of the Jews that were killed were not authentically Jewish per religious law, and he explained his reasoning by noting that anyone that is not born of a Jewish mother is forbidden from marrying a Jewish woman, and according to the religious law, any of descendants of such a union wouldn't be considered Jewish.
Oh, so he's not actually contesting the number of people killed, he's just the demographics of it.
He's basically using the logical fallacy known as no true Scotsman to say, no, all those people that died that the Nazis claimed were Jews weren't real Jews. No true Jew would have descended from a non-Jewish mother.
What would a person have to gain by this, aside from expressing a theory to show how rigid they were and inciting drama on the internets?
I feel like there's definitely an undertone in this of the people who died who weren't Jews don't count as much.
It does feel like that to me as well. I don't know why exactly.
Yeah, he never explicitly states that, and he does try and point out...
You wouldn't.
Yeah.
No matter almost who you were.
Yeah, that would be a really bad step. But
the people who would hold a sentiment similar to that would actually go the other way with it and go the people who weren't Jewish who died count more.
But yeah, I think one of the things he's trying to say is that, like, it's not as bad as you think. Like, I think that's kind of an idea he was trying to get to.
So what I grew up with as a relatively integrated, assimilated modern Jew, but active in congregational life, youth group, Hebrew school, and things like that, one of the things that I got as a kid was it has taken up to the mid-90s to replace the Jewish population worldwide that had perished during the Holocaust. And so what was drilled into my head was it took us 30 years or 40 years to get past this, to replace the Jewish population that had been lost. And linked to that was an utter terror related to the watering down of Jewish culture, practice, and continuity. Even amongst the relatively liberal denominations of Judaism, I, growing up, very much felt a focus on Jewish continuity as paramount. And one of the best ways to ensure Jewish continuity is that only that Jews marry other Jews, and that you raise your children in congregational life, that you send your kids on an Israel trip when they're, somewhere between 16 and 24. And I started along that path. For folks that were very welcoming of intermarried families into congregational life, I experienced when I first started dating Sam, who, as our listeners probably know, Sam Mulvey, not Jewish.
In any sense of the word.
No,
he did not go
not
to
at all.
classes to be able to marry you or anything like that.
It was met with a surprising amount of resistance, even amongst the liberal congregations and families that I encountered. And it was unnerving, having grown up in congregations that were generally welcoming of intermarried families, to say, well, I guess that those folks are already lost, but you're not lost yet. So I was met with this discomfort at best, and hostility at worst.
Open hostility? Or
Yes, yeah. in some circles. So I'm glad that you two, as relative outsiders, also feel that this is, in a sense, saying you don't really count if your parents were not Jewish or your mother was not Jewish and you descended from a not, legal Jewish line, is saying that we discount you as authentic Jews. I'm glad that you're getting the same kind of icky feeling that I got.
Yeah, this is uncomfortable reading.
I'm uncomfortable even having Becky explain Judaism to me because I haven't checked her Jew card. Was your mother Jewish, or are you unqualified to speak on? Show me the card.